Good day, everyone. For this session, we will discuss the competencies valued in the IT-BPM industry. So, if you're planning to work on BPO, customer service, technical support, or other IT-related roles, know that technical knowledge alone is not enough. Today, employers also look at how you think, how you communicate, learn, and interact with customers and teammates. So, our main question is, what makes an applicant competitive and ready for the industry? Now, in this session, we will try to identify these competencies and understand how they are applied in actual workplace situations. So, before we discuss the competencies, let us think about a common question. So, what does it take to get hired in the IT-BPM industry? Today, having a degree or technical knowledge is important, but employers also want to see whether you can actually perform in a workplace environment. Like, for example, imagine two applicants who have similar educational backgrounds. One applicant has good technical knowledge but struggles to communicate with customers, and the other one has good technical knowledge and can communicate clearly, can solve problems, and adapt to new situations. So, most likely, the second applicant will have a stronger advantage. So, developing these competencies can help you understand or can help you stand out from other applicants. So, ibig sabihin, hindi lang what do you know? Okay? Hindi lang yun yung tanong. But also, what can you do with what you know? Right? So, at the end of this session, we should be able to accomplish four things. First, we should be able to define competency. Second, we will identify the competencies valued in the IT BPM industry. And third, we will understand how these competencies are applied in actual workplace situations. And finally, we will identify ways to develop these competencies. So, the goal is not simply to memorize the terms. We want to understand how these skills can actually help us become more effective employees. Now, in this slide, it states that BPO or business process outsourcers, okay, or outsourcing companies generally look for similar competencies, although different companies may use different terms for them. Okay, some of the important competencies includes cognitive ability, English proficiency, computer literacy, and perceptual speed and accuracy. So these are the these are important. These are important because BPO work BPO work often requires employees to think quickly, communicate with customers, use computer systems, and process information accurately. So, for example, during a customer call, you may need to listen to a customer. You may have to understand the problem, search for information, um, type notes into the system, and provide solution all at the same time. Okay? So these competencies often work together rather than independently. And aside from the competencies na na-mention natin from the previous slide, there are also important behavioral and interpersonal competencies. Okay? These include communication, learning orientation, courtesy, empathy, reliability, and responsiveness. Now, notice that some of these are technical or cognitive, while others are related to attitude and behavior. For example, you may be very knowledgeable about computers, but if you cannot communicate properly with customers, your technical knowledge may not be enough. And similarly, you may be a good communicator, but if you are not reliable or responsive, your team may have difficulty depending on you. So, success in the IT-BPM requires a combination of knowledge, skills, and professional behavior. Now, let's start with cognitive ability. So, cognitive ability refers to your ability to think, analyze information, understand problems, and make appropriate decisions. So, in the workplace, um, you will encounter situations where there's no simple answer. So, you need to examine the information available and determine the best action. Example is if a customer says, "My internet is not working," you should not immediately assume that the modem needs to be replaced. So, you might ask, when did the problem start? Are there devices affected? Are there warning lights on the modem? So, by asking the right questions, you're trying to identify the root cause of the problem. So, cognitive ability is basically about thinking before you act and using logic to arrive at an effective solution. Another important competency is English proficiency. So, in the IT BPM industry, English is commonly used when communicating with international customers and clients. So, this includes listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Right? Example is during a customer service call, you need to understand what the customer is saying, even when they speak quickly or have a different accent. You also need to respond clearly and professionally. Now, for written communication, grammar and word choice are important. Instead of saying, "Wait, I'll check," okay? You can say, "Please allow me a moment while I check on your current account details." Mas maganda yon. The important point here is that English proficiency is not simply about having a perfect accent. It is about being understandable, professional, and effective in communication. Next is computer literacy. Literacy refers to your ability to use computer hardware, software, and internet applications effectively. So in IT BPM, this is extremely important kasi maraming task ang pine-perform through computer systems. Imagine that you are handling a customer call, and at the same time, you may need to access a CRM. You have to type notes, you have to check the customer's account, search a knowledge base, and communicate through another application. So, you need to be comfortable working with multiple tools. For example, a customer may ask about their order. Now, you may need to open the customer's profile, check on the order number, verify the status, and update the case. Okay? Hindi sapat, hindi enough na marunong ka lang mag-type or mag-browse sa internet. Okay? You should be able to use technology efficiently to accomplish your work. Now let's talk about perceptual speed and accuracy. Now this refers to your ability to process information quickly while maintaining accuracy. In the IT-BPM industry, companies often measure how long it takes an employee to complete a task. For example, how long does a technical support representative take to resolve an issue? Or how long does a sales representative take to complete a transaction? However, speed alone is not enough. Imagine an employee who can process 50 customer records very quickly but makes 10 errors. Nakakapag-process ka nga ng 50 customer records ng mabilis, pero may mga errors pa rin or may mga errors ka. That employee may actually create more problems because the information needs to be corrected. Okay? So the ideal situation is fast plus accurate. Okay? That equates to efficient performance. So the goal is not simply be fast. Okay? The goal is be fast without sacrificing quality. Now, perceptual speed and accuracy can be applied in different IT-BPM roles. For a technical support representative, speed and accuracy are important when troubleshooting customer problems. In cases of sales representative, it's important when processing customer orders and completing transactions. If we take it to a medical transcriptionist, accuracy is especially important because incorrect information can affect the quality of a medical record. Especially in medical terms is talagang mahirap yung spelling. There might be some terminologies that sounds alike but it spells different. So they have to be careful on that. For example, a designer may be asked to create a website banner within 2 hours. Hindi ibig sabihin na kailangan mong matapos agad kahit mali yung dimensions or layout. The expectation is to meet the deadline while maintaining quality. No? Hindi pwedeng kung ano na nung nandyan, yun na lang. 'Di ba? And communication. Communication is one of the most important competencies in the workplace or in any workplace per se. It is not only about speaking, it includes listening, understanding, writing, and expressing ideas clearly. In the IT-BPM industry, you may need to communicate with customers, teammates, supervisors, and international clients. For example, if you need a help from a teammate, instead of simply saying "help me with this," you can provide a context. Instead, just by saying "help me with this," instead you say, "Can you help me check this ticket? I want to make sure the information is correct before I submit it." That makes your request clearer. Good communication also means thinking before responding. If your answer is clear and complete, there will be less back and forth conversation. So remember, good communication reduces confusion and improves efficiency. Next is learning orientation. Okay? This means Having the willingness and the ability to continuously learn new information, tools, processes, and technology. Okay? This is practically important in IT-BPM because the industry changes very quickly. Example is a company may introduce a new CRM system. If you have a strong learning orientation, you do not simply complain and that the old system was easier, but instead you learn how the new system works and practice using it. Okay? You may also need to learn new products, new services, procedures, and customer handling guidelines. Ang important na mindset dito is, um, I may not know this yet, but I can learn it. Okay? Employers value people who are open, sorry, who are open to feedback and willing to improve. And courtesy is about showing respect. Okay? Respect, politeness, and professionalism when dealing with other people. In customer service, courtesy becomes especially important when dealing with frustrated or angry customers, okay? Or even irate customers. For example, if you need to place a customer on hold, you do not simply say, wait. That would be impolite, right? So instead, you can say, may I place you on hold for a few seconds while I check that information for you? That's a better way, okay? And when you return, you can say, thank you for waiting. I really appreciate your patience. Okay? This may seem like small words, but they create a very different customer experience. Courtesy is just or not just about saying please and thank you. 'Di ba? Yung mga magic words natin. It's not just about please and thank you. It's also about how you treat people, especially when the situation is difficult. Okay. Now, empathy. So we've gone through this the previous meetings. Now, empathy means understanding the customer's feelings, situation, or point of view. Okay, this is different from simply following a script. Okay, for example, imagine a customer saying, "I've been calling for 3 days about this problem." Okay, if you simply respond with, "Okay, let me check your account," right? So you may solve the technical issue, but you have not acknowledged the customer's frustration. A more empathetic response would be, I understand how frustrating it must be to deal with this for several days. So let me check what happened and see how we can resolve this as quickly as possible. Notice that you're not just acknowledging the emotion, you are also taking action. So empathy can be summarized as understanding plus care plus action. Okay? That's empathy in the IT-BPM industry. Another is reliability. Reliability means being consistent, being dependable, and trustworthy. A reliable employee is someone whom the team and company can depend on to complete responsibilities properly. In IT-BPM, reliability can be reflected through different measurements, including customer satisfaction or CSAT and AHT or average handling time. For example, an employee consistently provides good customer service and maintains reasonable handling time, this demonstrates reliable performance. But reliability is not only about metrics. It also means arriving on time, meeting deadlines, following procedures, and communicating when there is a problem. Like, if you know that you cannot meet a deadline, don't wait until the deadline passes. You have to inform your supervisor early and explain the situation. That's part of being dependable and being reliable. Okay? Because there might be circumstances that you cannot finish the report or you cannot meet the deadline. So you have to inform them before the deadline comes. Okay? Don't let it pass before you complain. Here are some measurements in IT-BPM. No? So reliability is also important for employees kasi who do not handle phone calls. No? For example, a non-voice employee may handle emails, okay, chats, data processing, or other transactions. So, one measurement mentioned in the previous presentation is the transaction length, or in this slide is the transaction length. Okay? This refers to how long it takes to complete an entire transaction, such as an email case, for example. Imagine a support employee who receives 20 emails per day. Okay? Being reliable means completing those emails one time while maintaining the quality and accuracy of the responses. Okay? You complete those 20 emails on time. Okay? While yung trabaho mo pa rin is of good quality and accurate pa rin yung mga responses mo. It also means following through on commitments. If you tell a customer, I will send you an update by 3 p.m., then you should send that update by 3 p.m. Okay? Reliability is consistency, not occasional excellence. And finally, we have responsiveness. Now, responsiveness means being quick and proactive in responding to customer or workplace needs. It is more than simply being fast. No, it involves attention. It involves urgency, initiative, and a follow through. Okay? For example, if a customer sends an inquiry, you should acknowledge it instead of leaving the customer wondering whether someone's handling their concern. You can say, I'm checking that for you now. Please give me a moment. Okay? Even if you do not have the solution yet, the customers know that you're actively working on the problem. Now, responsiveness is also important when there is a system issue or urgent team request. For example, if you discover that the system is down, you should immediately report it to the appropriate team instead of waiting for someone else to notice that. So remember, responsive employees do not simply wait for problems to become bigger. They take action early. Right? The good thing about these competencies is that they can be developed and improved. You do not have to be naturally excellent at communication, problem solving, or customer service. You can improve through training, practice, feedback, and actual experience. So, in this slide, organizations such as IBPAP, or the Animation Council of the Philippines and the Call Center Association of the Philippines are examples of institutions with training initiatives. Okay? As students or future professionals, you can also develop these competencies through everyday activities. For example, practicing to speak English, join presentations and discussions, um, learning new softwares, practice solving problems, asking for feedback, um, participate in internships or simulations, or practice professional customer interactions. Now, remember that competencies develop through repeated practice, and your skills today can become your competitive advantage tomorrow. So, this is the end of the slide. Thank you for listening.